Hello again everyone, and welcome to Coming Home, Survive and Thrive in Homeschooling. Today's podcast is entitled Educating Your Daughters, and I am basing this topic on two opinions that I have heard which have helped shape our thinking as to how we educated our daughters. The first person I'm going to refer to is Kim Kiyosaki, who was travelling New Zealand on a speaking tour with her husband Robert, author of Rich Dad, Poor Dad, in the early 2010s. And when she gave her lecture, something that she said just arrested my attention, and it was one of those "where were you when Princess Diana died" moments. I won't forget it. I know exactly where I was sitting in the auditorium and the shock that it gave me. She rattled off some figures about women and finances and poverty. Some of what she said was this: in the first year after a divorce, a woman's standard of living drops an average of 73%. The average woman born between 1948 and 1964, which are known as baby boomers, is likely to stay in the workforce until she is 74 years of age due to inadequate financial savings and pension coverage. Of the elderly living in poverty, 3 out of 4 are women, and yet 80% of these women were not poor when their husbands were alive. And that quote is still valid from an interview she gave in 2020. So it doesn't seem like very much has changed over those years, although I would think some would, because the following generations, Generation X and the millennials, are a little different in their baby boomer mothers and grandmothers, because often they did hold careers and took control of their own money before they went into marriage and raising a family. However, it's clearly still an issue, because if you think of people in your own immediate circle and acquaintances, you know that this is still a trend. And if Kim is still quoting those figures based on 2020, she clearly has access to those figures. The second opinion that I'm going to refer to today is what a homeschool conference speaker said some years ago when we were in our first few years of homeschooling, and I'm going to assume it would have been also in the early 2000s. Something along the lines of this was said: they believed that it was more important to concentrate your education on your sons as the providers for their families, and to teach your daughters to be wives and mothers. And I remember sitting there thinking, did she just say what I thought she just said, that educating your daughters wasn't important as it is your sons? So we've got two opposing opinions trying to influence us as to how to educate our daughters. One of my responses after the homeschooling speaker said what they did was, well, what if your husband dies, or is made redundant, or is sick long term, or you get divorced? None of us plan on any of this, but I know women in all of these groups. As an example, we don't take out car insurance in the certainty that we know we're going to crash, but it's not the best option to assume you'll never need it and therefore don't insure your car. So how did this change perspective for our daughters? Well, I became more strategic in these following things. Firstly, to make sure she learned skills to provide an income or to assist with the income should her family in the future go through any of those aforementioned possibilities. Does she learn music? If she's a serious music learner, consider doing the exams that go with that so that in the future she will be able to use those skills to teach. Ensure that she is good with computer skills. Perhaps make sure she learns skills such as hairdressing, crafts such as knitting and sewing. She must learn how to cook. She needs to learn how to write and understand grammar and spelling, and to always keep reading good books. How else did it affect our perspective in educating our daughters? Well, we started to take more seriously teaching them skills about being money-wise, such as budgeting. What is interest? when to use a credit card and when not to, preferably not to at all, and how to stay out of debt. How does she learn to plan for her future? Topics such as Investing 101, putting aside for savings, investments, and charity. All three of our daughters went to university, graduating with their degrees. If we were homeschooling now, we wouldn't necessarily encourage that. If she does go to university, be clear she understands that it doesn't necessarily create a career or a job, and she will have debt. Think of the future regularly while you're homeschooling, which is about changing your mindset from short-term and what they're going to do today or next term to thinking long-term, down the years of your homeschooling. You'll be learning financial independence yourself as you implement it for your daughters. It's probably safe to assume that you could do with increasing your money skills and future planning too. Please note, I am not suggesting this is setting up for a wife to leave her husband or to have separate financial independence if that's not your marital arrangement. But if you are in a marriage where your husband handles the finances or gives you a housekeeping allowance, you're still going to have to know financial knowledge. The odds are stacked against you because a man usually dies before his wife. Go back to Kim's statistics for the likely outcome of your future as a widow. In Robert Kiyosaki's book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, you can use this as a teaching book, amongst others, of course. Kim's book, Rich Woman, Take Charge of Your Money, Take Charge of Your Life, I got this on Audible, as I like to knit while I listen to my books. I may or may not agree with some of Kim's worldview. I'm not saying. Read or listen to the book for the general ideas and what applies to you if your worldviews clash. Don't let the title put you off reading, and I will definitely be listening to it again. A couple of points. Looking after financial independence and investing doesn't mean choosing between raising a family or the corporate world, because wealth or financial independence is not necessarily a salary, but cash flow. Choose the area of investment first, then find out how the money will come for it, not the other way around. When Kim wrote her book, the property market was hot and getting hotter. Things have changed. How does this affect decisions for further education and paying off student debt? If you have taught them financial wisdom, that is, how does it affect that? And what about me? Have I got all this sorted? It's sounding like it. No. What I need to get better at, and refreshing with Kim's book over this weekend has reminded me, I need to learn to do things like how to operate our budget spreadsheet. I need to refresh how to access our portfolio. Yes, I could rely on my adult children to help me understand should my husband die and I need access to all our information, but that's also an unnecessary addition to an already stressful situation, one that I am capable of preparing for now. It is all too easy to settle into roles that we get comfortable with. And I'm not against roles for husbands and wives. I'm actually a proponent for clear roles for husbands and wives. I just think it works well. However, if either of you are unclear about the very basics of each other's roles, it would be a really good idea to address this, because one of you is going to need to know some of these basic abilities of what the other roles are. So, what to do? Start with the books I have mentioned today. Just start. Include the books and podcasts as mentoring for your teens, sons and daughters. When you don't know a word, stop, look it up, understand it, and keep reading. Another book recently recommended by a financial advisor and hedge fund manager is The Success Equation by Michael J. Mauboussin. Also, go back to my podcasts, number 15 for my opinion on money, and number 48 and 49 with Rodney and Penelope Dawson for including business and financial ideas in your home education. And a podcast I should have mentioned earlier in this recording, where I mentioned about going to university, should they, shouldn't they. I have got a recording on that also, which is well worth listening to, re-listening to help you assess what would be good choices for the modern homeschooler. What I would like to do is an interview with an investment person, especially one who specializes in contrarian investments. So in other words, not property, tech stocks or cryptocurrencies. If a consultation would help you get focused on this and how to implement it, please contact me on my website. You'll also be able to order the books I've mentioned there too. cominghomeinfo.com. Well, I hope that's given you plenty of food for thought today. Thinking about the future for your homeschooled daughters is vital. Any questions, please get back to me. I love to hear from you. Bye for now.